offensive line, you mentioned some starters, so we'll start with you here. To run through, we had at left tackle Austin Barber and Jordan Herman, left guard Micah Mazuka and Najee Harris, center Kingsley Aguakin and Jake Slaughter, right guard Richie Leonard and Jalen Farmer, right tackle Damian George and Lindell Hudson. Cam Waits is back in a limited capacity. Micah Mazuka has returned. Richie Leonard, I guess, was in what they used to call the pit, but off to the side with some other injured players. And Lindell Hudson got into a minor car accident, although he seems to be recovering. Nick, some concern. I know that we were a little bit higher on this group. Obviously, Keontae Goodwin is transferring to be closer to his mom, but that's a group where not a ton of experience. You have a decent maybe front five, but after that, there's some big question marks that we're having.
Yeah, I think you have 3 tackles, and one of them I think was, a slightly above average tackle at FIU. I think if Barber were to get hurt, you're putting Lindell Hudson at like left tackle or Damian George at left tackle. I think, you have a 2 deep, but really, there's a tier of that 2 deep. So you've got to get some depth and get somebody ready. I asked Rob Sale when we spoke to him, how many offensive linemen do you want to feel good about? I think his answer is always going to be more. He said maybe 8 right now. So that'd be like 3 guys behind them. I think one of those guys is Najee Harris. They really like Jake Slaughter. We haven't seen a ton of him. So while I like Florida's starting 5, I don't know that there's depth to withstand the kind of, injuries or at least, non-contact jerseys we've seen along the offensive line. So Richie Leonard is back. Micah Mazuka is back. So you've got your starting 5 back, and I guess the one good thing about guys being injured in camp is that you get experience for Najee Harris, and you get experience for Rod Kearney and Bryce Levitt, some of the younger guys.
Yeah, Florida's lucky. Lindell Hudson, kind of a late grab for that recruiting class, probably just used as an additional piece of depth, but could be a situation where he does play quite a bit. So to be able to at least get some experience, grabbing that right before the transfer portal, because I think he was slated to go to USF. So, unfortunate circumstances, have plagued the Gators on the offensive line, but at least they were able to go grab that last person. No matter how much we see him or how good he is, he's right now your number 2 right tackle. So, what are your thoughts on that front 5 and back 5 there?
Yeah, they just got to stay healthy. I think this is just my opinion, but it seems like the staff is being precautionary with injuries and playing the safe side a little bit. But it just and while you're playing precautionary, taking those measures to keep the team healthy, to start the season healthy, like you said, that provides opportunity for these younger boys to get some reps. I think we know we could get out of Mazuka, so seeing who backs him. Tackles the biggest worry of any of them, but I think all the depth and the guys behind the immediate 5 getting reps in camp is going to be key and important, and we just got to battle the war of attrition. We win the war of attrition in the trenches, I think we're going to have a successful season.
Yeah, Micah Mazuka, good to have him back. Good to keep him on campus after a little bit of a flare-up last year, or last spring. But, a guy that comes in, just as a reminder, Pro Football Focus gave him an 82.9 on the season, was on Pro Football Network's Team of the Week in week 3 of last year as a starter for Baylor. Comes in, obviously, with a lot of experience. Again, Austin Barber, we saw a lot out of him, freshman all SEC. Again, he's going to be getting a majority of that playing time now, or is going to be a starter, right? So making sure that you can stay consistent and not just when you're called upon, but each and every play that you're out there. And then going back through the list, certainly Kingsley Aguakin is getting quite a bit of national recognition as one of those guys that maybe is an all SEC type of player at center. Florida had some snapping issues in that game against Oregon State last year. So hopefully we get those cleaned up. Richie Leonard, a guy that's been on campus for a little while now, gets that opportunity. And Damian George, a former heavy player at Alabama, loses that starting spot due to injury, comes to transfer, is penciled in. So those five I am very excited about. But, we've not seen much out of Jordan Herman, a JUCO transfer. Najee Harris is a freshman. Jake Slaughter's been on campus for a few years now. Jalen Farmer, don't know much, about him other than, a recruit that was, highly sought, but again, hasn't played at that speed yet. And then Lindell Hudson, comes from FIU, just obviously some cause for concern if injuries do start to happen. And when you have shoulder injuries, those start to get re-aggravated. So, hopefully, Florida, with the precautions that they've been taking, can keep this group healthy. Because if not, there's just a big gap, in my opinion, between 1 and 2.
Yeah, and Cam Waits is a guy who could have played. I thought it was wild to see him back. He's just in the pit,
Right.
But just that he's weight bearing and doing stuff, around 8 months after an Achilles surgery. So I don't know when he will be back in football shape or cleared to go through, practice to then get back on the field. But he'd be a guy. It would be huge to get him because he has played tackle and he's played guard. And he's would be a swing guy for you. And if he were 100% healthy, he would be probably your fourth offensive tackle.
Okay.
If they wanted to do that, because they moved him to guard kind of late last year, but he played tackle at Louisiana, and when he first got to Florida, played tackle.
Yeah, looking through this list here too, we didn't mention Roger Kearney, the freshman. He seems to be getting quite a bit of snaps on that second and third team, so he's a guy that could play a little bit as well. Bryce Lovett, Nick, you mentioned his name as well, a freshman. Maybe you see him, certainly you don't want to necessarily throw in a freshman offensive lineman unless you have to. And then Cam Waits, the transfer from Louisiana, 6'8", 364 pounds, coming off an Achilles injury. So again, those are one of those things that you just want to slowly work back. But a guy that understands the offensive system, spent last year, just learning more about the way that the Gators are going to operate, but certainly was recruited by Billy Napier over at Louisiana. So one of the few that transferred over from that university when Billy Napier came over. So, and then Jordan Herman, a guy that the Gators were able to get out of community college. So I think Florida only had 2 JUCO transfers last year. So again, a guy that you're going to rely on, but he's 6'8", 371 pounds. So a huge offensive line group this year. So again, I think that the only thing that we can say about this group is health, and